So hi everyone. Thank you for joining. I'm just admitting everyone who's in the waiting room, and we will start promptly at 12. Just for anyone who has already joined, if you can make sure that you rename yourself so I can see the full name that you booked with, and also your institution would be really helpful, but certainly the full name that you booked with so we can verify you if that's okay. And we'll start promptly at 12. Okay, so it is 12. So like I said, we're going to start promptly at 12 p.m. So I'm not going to say much, just some very brief introductions on how the session will go. I'm delighted that we've got Sam from UCAS joining us, who I'll allow to introduce herself once I've rambled a little bit. But first of all, if I can ask everybody just to rename themselves. So if you hover over the little three circles where your little your screen is, where you can see yourself, and just rename yourself if you haven't already got your full name, so the name that you've booked with, also your institution would be really helpful as well. So Sam's going to take us through a slide deck. We will, where we feel necessary, sort of pause at the end of sections to address some of the questions, but it may be that a lot of the questions are left until the end. So in terms of asking questions, you should see in the bottom of the screen, you should see a chat box. If you can just post any questions that you have in there as we go along. And without further ado, I'll now hand over to Sam. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. I'm really delighted to be here to do this session. There's been a lot happening at UCAS, a number of changes across our discovery tools and the application, which for you and your roles as going out and working directly with students and teachers and advisors in schools and colleges, I think it's really important that you're aware of, but also aware of the support that we have that you can use. Hopefully by end of today, you'll have some tips to save you time, which is always my primary goal, is how can I save people time in their jobs, and also a bit more of understanding of some of the changes going on. So it's going to be quite a broad update session. We're going to cover a number of different things, including references, where we're at with personal statement changes, some of the application changes as well. I'll make sure that I share the deck with Jen post-session so that that can be sent out to those of you that have attended. And obviously, if you've got any questions, please do ask them during the session, but I'm always available if you want to email me anything, and I'll put my email in the chat at the end of the session as well. So that's it really. Who am I? Probably should start with that. So I'm a customer success manager, and I primarily work with our teacher and advisor audience. And for me, I think that's a really important distinction, particularly in the roles that you do in student recruitment, widening participation, outreach, is that often, you know, we talk about universities and colleges and providers, but really you are advisors. You are advisors going out there, talking about higher education, talking about progress. And so I think a lot of the support that we have for our teachers and advisors at UCAS is hugely relevant for the work that you're doing. And hopefully I'll be able to draw that out today. I've been at UCAS for about 8 years. I've always worked within sort of training, development, working with teachers and advisors, and used to work in the secondary education sector before I joined UCAS teaching as a classroom teacher. So draw all of that experience hopefully today. So please do ask questions. We're going to kind of talk for about, I've got about sort of 40 minutes worth of updates, and then obviously leaving a bit of time at the end for questions as well. So the first bit I want to start with is what we call some of our discovery updates. So when we talk about discovery at UCAS, what we mean is the sort of pre-applicant tools that we have. So primarily the UCAS Hub. I suppose my top tip number one for the session today is, if you don't have a UCAS Hub account, make sure you sign up to UCAS, and then you can start using the Hub resources as well. And I think that really helps when you're doing practical outreach sessions or delivery in schools and colleges, is to show them. We have got a whole range of PowerPoint resources and screenshot packs that you can download and edit. So we've already done those, and they're available on UCAS.
Sorry, Sam. Just a message to say that we can't see the slides.
Oh,
And I think it might be because you haven't got them sort of in presenter
oh,
mode.
sorry. I thought when we started, they were fine. Am I?
I could see them okay.
Yeah. Are they big? Are they small now?
I think, can you start the
Let me.
slideshow maybe?
It
They're in
is.
designer view, not presenter view.
Okay, so from my side, they are in presenters view. So let me just
Okay.
try again. Let me stop sharing and let me reshare because it was all set up perfectly. I thought we were going to have such a smooth start and then we didn't. So bear with everybody. Let's just try this again and I will reshare.
Thank you.
Let's try it this way. How is that? Better, everybody?
That's perfect for me.
Perfect.
Yep.
Lovely.
Great. Thanks, Jamie.
Ideal. Thank you. So yeah, so top tip is if you are able to sign up and have that, then that will really help you understand and I think use some of the tools that we are developing. So the hub is in development all the time, and we make small changes as we go. I think a couple of key things to remember with the UCAS Hub, and I still say this to teachers and advisors when I'm out and about, is it isn't only for those that are currently applying. And you can, when you register with UCAS, which will take you directly to the Hub, you can do that for present. It will ask you for up to 2028 entry. So really encouraging younger students in year 8, year 9, year 10 to really think about starting some of that initial research. And some of the new features that we've got that I'm going to share with you today will hopefully encourage teachers and advisors to begin to use that with students. Why is that important? So one of my favorite reports that UCAS has ever released was back from 2021. It was the first. I didn't write it. I didn't have any involvement with it. So this is purely objectively was called What Influences School Leavers' Choice. It's quite a hefty report, but we surveyed 27,000 students as part of that. If you haven't seen it already, please do read it. It is very insightful. And what it shows is how important early subject-specific information, advice, and guidance is. Yes, HE is general, but really it's that subject specific information. And of those wanting more advice, the majority of them said they wanted it pre-GCSE, so pre that level 2 decision making. So again, that's why push sort of supporting students to understand that there are tools on the hub will really help. So some of the new things that we've got is subject spotlights. So in a collaboration, but yet repeat the name of the report, it's What Influences School Leavers' Choice, Where's Next? And what I will do is I will put a link to that report in the chat in just a second, but I'll also make sure I add it to this deck so that when it gets sent out to Jen, you've all got a link to that report. And I'll also include a link to all of our reports. We've done a huge number of them, and a lot of them will also go into in-depth about specific cohorts. So we've done one about supporting students with mental health needs, disabilities report. We've done we'll be having a caring report coming out soon. So for some of you with particular areas of focus, those reports will be really useful. And what those report insights do is it takes the data that we've got at UCAS and it combines it with that student voice and sentiment that we get through the survey work that we do with students. And so I would really recommend our reports as a source of insight for the work that you're doing, particularly when you're thinking about structuring your delivery or outreach sessions that you're doing with schools and colleges. There's some absolutely real juicy nuggets of information in there that will help. And I'd be happy to come back and do an additional session looking at some of those reports in a bit more detail if that would be of use to the members. And I can pick that up at a later date. But that's a really great report for the work that you will do in your roles. So some of the developments that we've been working on over the last couple of years has come really directly from the report those report work that we've done in terms of what's influencing student decision making. And this focus on subject specific outreach was key. So we've got a collaboration with SpringPod now, which will enable any applicant or student thinking about their options. So this is before they've even started thinking about applying, to come through UCAS and take part in subject spotlights powered by SpringPod through UCAS. For me, this is hugely exciting, having worked in classrooms, is that actually what we know when we look at course choice, and I'm sure many of you will know this, is that actually really understanding what happens at higher education level is a challenge. You know, most students are looking at perhaps 14, 15 level 3 subjects to pick from when they progress from post 16 to post 18. And actually, we've got 35,000 courses to choose from on UCAS. There's no national curriculum at higher education level. So really understanding what one course is versus another, or even what that broad subject area might involve at higher education, is often the challenge. And you all run fantastic subject specific programs, but often it's getting students to engage with that at a younger age. We know having them being released from classrooms difficult. You might only be able to work with certain cohorts of students for those. And so this is to really kind of fill some of that for all applicants. So through the subject spotlights, it's essentially they'll be able to try a degree before they look at applying. And it is key to point out that this is level 6. It's pitched at that kind of level 6 study. What students will be able to do is they'll be able to see lots of different on-demand spotlights that they can take part in. And this is just a couple of examples. Obviously, they're delivered by your universities. So it'll be really great if you know which ones that maybe your own institutions offers. But also, I think the importance is to kind of promote HE on a broader level, is to say, actually, you know, when you're thinking about your options, is try these courses, but then go and see what other institutions offer courses that are similar in your exploration through the hub. And that's where we really want to be at, is to signpost the specifics that your institutions are doing through our central platform, where we know often students are signposted from their schools and colleges. On our advisor pages of ucas.com, and I'd say this is kind of top tip number 2. So firstly, top tip number 1, make sure you have your own UCAS account so you can go in and start having a look at these tools. And top tip number 2 is bookmark ucas.com/advisors, because really, I think for you in your roles, that's where a lot of the content will be that you can directly use and change in the materials that you're producing. So there's a link on the bottom of this slide to our advisor help and advice page, all about subject spotlights. So some FAQs, it links to a PowerPoint deck that you can download with a little bit more information about how subject spotlights work. So please do have a look. Those resources are equally for you to use as they are for our teacher and advisor audience as well. As I said, to me, you're advisors, and I would really want you to be engaging with those materials. Hopefully it will save you some time. So if you bookmark ucas.com/advisors. I feel like I'm giving you quite a lot of homework in today's session, but if you haven't explored that area of the UCAS website, please do. I hope you would find hugely useful support there for your day-to-day roles, and that you can share with colleagues. The other thing I wanted to highlight, you may well know about this, I know many of you will obviously with your own institutions already be engaged with UniBuddy, but we have a direct kind of portal, let's say, between that, and we've offered this peer-to-peer chat now. So we've had UniBuddy UniBuddy powered by UCAS for a long time on the hub, but now it's been enhanced so that when students are actually beginning to explore course options where there are ambassadors, they're able to more easily interact and engage. That peer-to-peer collaboration in that What's Next report from 2021 I mentioned, hugely influential as students move through their educational journey. So parents, teachers and advisors, very influential post 16 choices. When we get to post 18 choices, those level 3 options, actually that peer-to-peer influence becoming increasingly important. So you know that, we know that, so it's making sure that students have really got access to that. So that is available in an enhanced way. And again, as you'll have seen from the initial screenshot I showed, just moving back, all of that very prominent when students land on their dashboard on the hub. The other key bit I wanted to highlight was this bit in the middle, where you can see at the moment, hopefully you can see my cursor moving across, discover what to do, how to apply, discover careers, all under that initial kind of application journey. That is personalized. So what you will see this summer through confirmation and clearing is that where students are at a different point in the application status, that information, advice, and guidance will change, and it will signpost them directly to what you need to do next when you find yourself in this status. So when they come to the results period this year, if they find themselves with an unconditional course change, for example, it will actually have, here's your next steps, if they find themselves needing clearing. And as they move through their application journey, that bit of IAG will also change. So it will hopefully continue to signpost them to the right places. And I think that's a useful development for you and your roles to know. So some exciting developments that we've got on the hub. I wanted to just thank you firstly. Many of you will take part and have taken part in our hub lives and advisor lives that we do, but we do run lots of webinars and live sessions, and they're all recorded. And I think this is a really underutilized resource across the board, particularly with our teacher and advisor audience. You've got capacity limitations in terms of getting out into every individual school or college, but these recordings are all on demand and can be used in the classroom by teachers and advisors to support with HE exploration, and they cover a whole range of topics. There's nearly 2 years worth of recordings on there. Some of them, none of them are out of date. The information is still really relevant, but it's a great way to say, look, if you want to do a personal statement writing session and maybe they reach out to you and you're not available, is that we do have workshops like that that have been recorded that can be utilized in the classroom in conjunction with some lesson plans that we've got. And so again, in some of the resources I'll signpost to you in a bit later too, those lesson plans can be used in conjunction with these recordings. So I would certainly have a look at that, and they can all be accessed off the UCAS hub as well. So final update, just wanted to make sure you're all aware of, is for some time now in the hub, when students are looking at course options, they'll now see apprenticeship opportunities alongside undergraduate courses. Well, there's huge demand for more information about apprenticeships. What we know from the data that we've seen is in terms of 14 to 17-year-olds, that kind of, I suppose, core market for many of us, 59% of people coming to the UCAS website indicate that they want to know about apprenticeships as well. And so that gives them that information, front and center to help them manage their options and perhaps run simultaneous applications. A big thing for me is helping students, teachers and advisors understand that you can absolutely apply to apprenticeships at the same time as applying to UCAS. And for many students, I think apprenticeships is option A, and applying through UCAS is often considered as their alternative. But because it is obviously simple to apply through the UCAS process, we find many students still making that application. So we'll continue to develop the information, advice and guidance that we've got on apprenticeships. At this stage, obviously, that's what it is, information, advice and guidance, and obviously seeing those vacancy opportunities. So that is some of the discovery updates in terms of the developments to the UCAS hub to be aware of going into 2025 cycle. Now I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of the application updates. So can't see any kind of key questions coming up at the moment, but I will obviously answer questions at the end. So there have been some updates to the application, which I'm going to go through in just a second. I just wanted to remind everybody of key dates for the 2025 cycle. So search tool in terms of courses went live on the 30th of April. Advisors and our registered centres were able to start setting up their registered centre from the 7th of May. Cycle went live on the 14th of May. And the first date that applications can be sent to UCAS will be the 3rd of September. Key deadlines, 15th of October for those early application courses, and then the equal consideration date will be the 29th of January 2025. So cycle is sort of as usual this year. In terms of the developments, I have only got 40 minutes today to cover quite a few updates, so I'm just going to be doing these top level. We run a number of advisor webinars. We do one every month, focusing on kind of operational information that our teachers and advisors need to know. I'd really recommend that you in your roles think about joining some of those. You're more than welcome to. They are available on the Advisor Live page on ucas.com/advisors. We ran two detailed kind of webinars where we went through the 2025 changes, and they were recorded. So if you weren't able to join those, then please do access those. And a number of all of the changes, sorry, have been covered in the screenshot pack. So with the 2025 cycle toolkit that we launch every year, again, if you haven't already accessed that, then I would really recommend you to. We have included all of these changes in the 2025 cycle toolkit. So I'm going to just broadly run through the changes to each of the sections. We've made improvements to the education section in terms of categorizing those qualifications to try to help students enter it more accurately. We know this is a big area of questions that you will get, particularly on things like open days and in contact with students prior to their application and post-application. Actually, at UCAS, we receive thousands of qualification amendment forms every year, which we have to process. So those changes have been done to try to support improvements in that area. We have also removed, you'll notice, the English language section from the application. Now, those questions haven't gone. They've been moved to the education section, but just be aware there is no kind of English language section tile anymore on the application. We've improved the nationality details section with some additional questions, and we do have a new where you live section. So I will go through each of those now briefly, but as I said, we did run a couple of on-demand, a couple of very in-depth webinars about it, which you can catch up on demand as well. So in terms of improvements to these sections, the where you live section is new for this application cycle. We will be asking applicants to add addresses from where they have lived since the 1st of September 2022, so that we collect 3 years of address history. Those savvy ones among you will realise that that is actually an improvement that's been added from lots of engagement with you and colleagues in admissions to support fee status assessment. But it will also be there to support students in conveying some context. So you'll see from the options, they'll put down where they live, and then they'll be able to indicate why they've lived there. That will also help to communicate for students who perhaps have had been care experience, perhaps they're in temporary accommodation, and hopefully be able to signpost to you and your admissions colleagues that maybe they need some additional support, maybe they need some additional signposting from student services. So we hope that this will be a good improvement for all of you in the sector in assessing applications coming in. So that has been added. Where a student adds in contact details, their primary address, that kind of postal address, that will pull through and they'll be able to confirm that that is an address that they do live at, and then they will add in any other previous addresses. For a large number of applicants, this is simply going to be, I've lived in this one address for 3 years. We do realise for some students that this might be quite complicated to fill in. We've worked with third-party charities, particularly to make sure that this supports students who actually communicating this might be quite complicated and difficult. And obviously our student support teams are on hand to take calls to support students in completing that section. So new section for this year, and we will obviously be taking feedback on that. A couple of changes, as I said, to the education section. So we will be pre-populating a place of education for students that are linked via a buzzword. So where registered centres, they've gone through that buzzword process and said, yes, this is the centre I'm at. It will pre-populate as a place of education. Actually, you'd be surprised at how many mistakes are made with students actually putting the wrong centre in for where they're studying. So linked to one centre and actually put a different centre down for place of education because of similar names. Students will obviously be able to edit that. They'll obviously be able to add in additional places of education. So it doesn't stop any of that, but it's hopefully going to eliminate some of those unintended errors that we get. Any extra school addresses, particularly for international applicants, can be manually added in as well. Top tip, again, from me, is if you don't every year complete a dummy application in your role, I would really encourage you to. So there's little tweaks to the application form based on feedback regularly. And the best way to stay up to date is to have a live application. Just obviously don't pay and send unless you want to attend. But actually having that in flight will help you kind of understand that journey the student's going on. So you can just do that. Just as I said, don't pay and send. I often have them running and we'll change it as I go through the year. It can be really helpful when you're doing outreach sessions to have a live application to show. Many of you I know already do that, but if you're new to your role, it might not be something that you've thought of. So hopefully that will help. We've got a new question in the education section. So when you add a place of education, we'll ask you, did you do this in person or online? That has been added specifically to support applicants post-COVID who may have studied in different ways, and also supporting a number of applicants who are doing additional online study to supplement their in-person study. Also will really support mature applicants and those who have a non-standard trajectory into education. So a new addition for that. And we've added a new option to attendance type. We've removed sandwich option, didn't really resonate, and we've added exam only. Again, this will really help applicants to communicate where they might be doing resits for level 2 qualifications, perhaps outside of a centre, or for mature applicants or those who are reappliers in communicating what their academic journey was, and hopefully supporting you and your institutions to better understand the journey that they've gone on. So they are some changes to the education section. When I said we've sort of changed how they input, just thought I'd show you. So you'll see that at the top, they'll have all applicants will see this, pick your qualification type, and we've grouped applications to try to help students find them more easily. Where applicants are applying with the registered centre, so they've used a buzzword, what will then happen is, let's say, for example, I've picked A-level, AS, EPQ, and T-level category. I'll select that. I might then select A-levels. It will then, or GCSEs, for example, it will then show me for that category the short list of qualifications my registered centre has put in. If you're out working with teachers and advisors, I'd really encourage you to support the message of have a qualification shortlist and make sure it's reviewed regularly to enable students to better input the qualifications. So this is a change. We've always had qualifications shortlists, but it's a change in how it's presented. There will be teething issues, so we'd appreciate any feedback from you as well on how that's working. But the best way to understand those changes, as I've said, is to go in and have a play with it and see where the categories are. But this is what a student would see. It doesn't supersede down at the bottom the options for students to search qualifications within that category. So if for whatever reason there isn't a qualification shortlist, this bit would not appear, but they would have the option to search manually for qualifications within that category group. So I just have included a slightly bigger screenshot because it was a lot to have on one detail. So as you can see, if I pick a category such as this one, what is provided by my school or college within that group. So that works the same for all of those different categories. In addition to the education categories, we've also removed the highest qualification on entry question. So that's gone. It was causing a lot of questions, a lot of contact, and a lot of confusion from applicants, and it wasn't really useful for the majority of people. And we've also added in the English language certificate questions into the education section. So it's gone as a section on its own, but where students do have TEFL or IELTS, they are able to input that into the education section. So it kind of flows and it is a qualification they've taken, So it's within education. As ever, if they don't have those, they don't need to supply them, and you will collect that from them, obviously further down the confirmation and offer making process. As I said, we've made some improvements to the nationality details section. This is really about improving the questions for students who are international. We've added some options in terms of visas. So where we're asking them if they need a student visa, we've given them the option of don't know. Many of them don't. We've also tried to break down those questions to be more dynamic. So it takes those students on a journey. So depending on how they answer one question, will appear further questions. And it's to help them try to input the correct information that might be required for a fee status assessment from your behalf. Hopefully, it will also support the other, how do I put it in? Am I going to be home or international? This is to supply you as institutions with the relevant information for you to make those assessments, and also to help you signpost to students if you think they need further information. So those are the questions that are in that section that have been added to help support better collection and increased accuracy for international students in that section. So as I said, we've run a number of webinars, and we call them advisor lives, but as I said, I'd really like you to start thinking of yourselves as advisors and engaging with these too. These are all of the ones that we've run recently, and you're welcome to watch any of them back on demand if you would like to. So that is a little bit about 2025 new tools and updates to the applications. I wanted to just take a bit of time to talk about reforming admissions, that journey that we're on, and a couple of delivery of things that we've now got live, which you might have heard about. So just a reminder that our journey started back a number of years ago with the addition of the widening participation questions. So that's those more about you questions. We've seen great engagement with those in terms of students sharing that they fit into one of those categories. That then obviously coupled with the reference reforms and the addition of that section 2. The more about you questions in the application and section 2 of the reference really go hand in hand. So where students are sharing that they fit within one of those additional questions, those 7 new questions, so free school meals, am I asylum seeker, refugee, for example, do I have caring responsibilities, am I estranged? When we're supporting advisors and when we're talking to advisors, we would say if a student shared something in section 2, you would likely expect that there's a bit of clarification or context added if the advisor is able to into section 2 of the reference in that. And I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. In terms of those widening participation questions, within the more about you section, we've seen in last cycle about 25% of applicants answer at least one of those positively in terms of sharing that information, and hopefully that's supporting your institutions in making those contextual offers. I think obviously there's still more work that the sector needs to do in helping advisors understand what contextualized admissions actually is, and we're picking that up in our information, advice and guidance through the fair access work that colleagues are doing at UCAS. I'm delighted to say that the Outreach Connection service is now live for both you as universities and colleges in order to share your outreach opportunities. So if you don't know if your institution is sharing that on the Outreach Connection tool, I'd really encourage you to find out. So universities and colleges can share any programs, targeted programs that you might have that students can take part in. And I'll show you what that looks like to advisors in just a little bit later. But it's now live for advisors as well. So they can see those opportunities in the advisor portal now and help signpost students to that. That's what it is at the moment. It's a bit of an information sharing tool. But we heard from advisors, we know there's fabulous outreach work being done by universities and colleges, but we really struggle to know where those opportunities are and which students are appropriate for them. So great development. We'd like to see as many universities and colleges sharing their information on that tool. Entry grades tool is also now live for students, and I'm going to talk about that in just a second. And personal statements, just a reminder to everybody, is that's not going live until the 2026 cycle. So that will be the cycle launching next May, and I'll do a quick update on that now as well. So lots has happened, and we've had a lot go live this year. So in terms of the access to entry grades, as I said, that is now live for students to see. It is the first step in that, so what we would call a beta tool. So through this, students can identify and see the grade profiles. Data is aggregated across subject groups, so it's not at specific course level. There are there's lots of information, ucas.com/advisors on this tool to support advisors in helping students understand how to use it. Obviously, we're hoping this is a step for that increased transparency on entry requirements that's being asked for to help students make more choice. In terms of how this tool came about, it was actually the design and what should be shared was actually done through an independent research project that UCAS commissioned, and this was directly what students were asking for. So the fractions representing the total number of applicants, the opportunity to put your personalized comparison in, and the most common grades held by applicants was what was asked for by students, and that's how this tool came about. Bit of historical context: this was available to advisors in the advisor portal since 2019, historic grades entry. The intention always was to share it with students, but it obviously had to be done in a way that would be supportive. So data currently spans 2019 to 2023 on this. Yes, that takes into account some anomaly years that we know, but it also includes all applications, main scheme and clearing, and it doesn't segment by UK, EU or international at this stage. I think it's also really important to say that MVP, so this first product is A levels only and BTEC extended diploma only. We are looking at expanding out qualifications within that tool. And we don't have data for all courses. There has to be that available data to create the meaningful profile. So I think it's about 55% of courses, which covers about 84% of applications in the current cycle. But if anybody wants to go into more detail with that, happy to discuss that with them. But we do have lots of information about this available online. So what students will do is they'll go on to a course, they will see this. There's lots of information surrounding this, lots of information there for students to see, lots of guidance in terms of when we can and can't supply data. So this is what they'll see. They'll also have the option of seeing it like this. I did just put random universities here to be able to show you visually the different warnings that we've got. So where we don't have enough historical grades entry data, we will say that both on the tile and on the screen I showed you before. We've also then got those kind of personalized bits where if students do input their own information, they'll be able to see it. And they can obviously then input whether they've got UK A levels or that extended diploma in there. Once they've done that, it then updates with that how do you compare tool. My advice would be just to go on, have a play, have a look, understand how it presents for your own institution, because I think that's where you'll be getting the most common questions. I think the key bits for students and advisors to understand is this is not at specific course level. That data is grouped. We do say that, and it's a guide. It's a guide to help them understand and really to support aspiration on that. So just wanted to touch upon references. I'm sure you're still getting questions about it. We've been sharing lots. We actually have a webinar tomorrow for advisors to join where we'll be doing a bit of a 2025 update for them. For the 2025 cycle, we're not changing anything in terms of that 3-section approach. We have enhanced the guidance. So if you haven't seen that, please do make sure you're familiar with it. And we've got a whole load of resources available for you to use in your sessions as well. It's a bit of a plea from me to make sure you do. We've got a PowerPoint all about reference writing. Please do use that in your own materials. Download it, edit it, add it in. We want the same information and advice to be shared. You obviously will have your own particular institution take, but we have done surveys across providers, and what we know is that actually the new section is welcomed by by pretty much everybody in terms of finding that specific context, individual context. The message we need to share with advisors as a sector is everybody uses the reference difference, and people have to remember that. And the difficulty is when we have one university or college that says we don't read it, it makes it really difficult for universities and colleges that do and do need that information. And you know, from the research that we've done and the surveys that we've got back is that every institution might use it differently, even within their own academic areas. And so we have to be careful that we don't say it's a one size fits all. The reference is there. What we want to do is support advisors in feeling confident in writing less. The new section approach is there to help it be easier for providers to find it quickly. So to do that, we need advisors to feel confident in writing less. And that's a message that we need the sector to support in delivering. So please do read the additional information. The 3 sections have stayed the same. There is no difference in that. The message that we really need to embed for 2025 is that the references needs to be thinking about the references as through the C's of the references is how I'm saying it. So that's section 1 about your school or college is about cohort context, things that affect your whole cohort of students that year. I'm sure you'll agree, and I've heard feedback from all of you as well, is that, you know, knowing that a school was established in 1867 is not particularly useful for you. So we need to support advisors in understanding that you already receive data from UCAS in terms of some context data about that school or college. So where it can be helpful for section 1 is information about predicted grades assessment process, how predictions are reached, what qualification profiles are offered, if certain subjects aren't offered, if they're maybe doing qualifications, particularly international registered centres that aren't fully understood, provide a little bit of detail. Maybe that whole school or college has been affected by concrete issues or a fire or a natural disaster. Maybe there hasn't been a subject specialist. So cohort context that actually supports you as universities and colleges in understanding that student's application. Section 2, that extenuating circumstances, we've got to decouple that from being about what special circumstances are for exam boards. That's one part of it, but also it doesn't automatically mean a contextual offer will be given. It's about providing circumstantial context relevant to the individual. So this is that maybe there's been a bereavement, maybe that individual journey has been bumpy for that student for some reasons. Maybe there are some specific access needs that needs to be considered. So this is that really personal context, has to be done with the student's consent. So nothing can be shared without student consent. And it also should be following basic safeguarding principles in, we've heard from providers particularly, oversharing information. So it can be used as a flag to say there is information where it might be very specific or very sensitive to say that they'll still use your forms or contact you directly to discuss. That section from the feedback we've had from you as providers is really useful and is the section that is where it is there. It is the bit that's being primarily looked at. In addition, I think it's important that we all reiterate that for the majority of students, there's likely not to be anything in section 2. And if you're having to think about something to put in section 2, it probably doesn't need to go there. So for the majority of applicants, there will not be anything to put in section 2. And then that's when you tick the box to say no information to share. Now, section 3 is where we've been asked for the most clarification. So we have updated our guidance this year, and I'll share that in just a second. But that's really thinking about that additional course context. Concise and relevant to the courses being applied for where possible, and very much evidence-based. So that section 3 is moving beyond the kind of traditional old, very much subject by subject, long golden thread of the reference. I think we all need to support teachers and advisors in understanding they are not being judged on the quality of their reference. We want to encourage advisors to be confident in being concise and providing you with evidence-based comments. So that's the message that we would like embedded. So a couple of clarifications to the guidance, but again, if you are out delivering sessions on references, please read the guidance on advisors /references. That was updated in April and has been available since April. On there, there's a PowerPoint you can download. There's a little video of us talking about the updates. There's loads of information and advice, and there's all the frequently asked questions. Please be familiar with that when you're taking questions on references. The things that we have clarified, the biggest things are 3,800 free text. So it's still a maximum of 4,000 characters, but every space, the section headings and line breaks will take up a character count. So really 3,800 free text to a maximum of 4,000 characters to incorporate that formatting structure. That's just the system. You obviously know that that's how you're reading things off us through your own student record systems. We've updated that extenuating circumstances to be to clarify how to share very complex or sensitive needs. And that's section 3, really focusing on short, concise, factual sentences, and to sort of reassure advisors that it's unlikely they won't have anything for section 3, and to really only tick that box if they've really got nothing to share, which for some that might actually be really required. But we'd expect, I think it's likely we'd all imagine that there was at least some supporting concise statements within that. So please do read those, that guidance. As I said, in terms of personal statements, so all registered centres will be having a briefing document from us imminently within June, which will broadly outline the changes to the personal statement. It's going to be 3 core themes. This has been live. This has been on our reform pages for a number of months now. Those 3 core themes will be motivation for course, academic kind of preparedness for course, and preparedness through other experiences. All 3 sections will be mandatory, but character count will be split flexibly to enable students to have that personalized. Some will have more for certain sections than others. So that will all be clarified in that briefing pack that will go out, a briefing document that will go out in June. And again, I would encourage you to engage with the advisor side of the website over the coming weeks in order to be staying up to date. Just so you know, we'll then be releasing more materials in September. That will include things like PowerPoints, lesson plans, etc., that we would again really encourage you to be using and thinking about incorporating into your outreach work as you're planning for the next cycle. So just a reminder, this is for 2026 entry, but that cycle goes live May next year. So we want to get it out so everyone's got time to prepare. I've mentioned a lot of resources to support you. This is just to highlight. There's all these links here. I'm not gonna, I want to leave good 10 minutes for questions, but we've got apprenticeship materials, including PowerPoint packs you can download. We've got the widget that can be embedded on schools and colleges' websites. So that's a really great tool you can highlight to them when you're out and about. Our toolkit has been live since April. I'd really encourage you in your roles to engage with this. This includes a screenshot pack, step-by-step through the application that you can download and edit. Please use those in your own materials, a parents' evening presentation, and 3 other introduction to HE presentations. And we've also got all of our references materials, which includes the different processes for independents and registered centres. It also includes FAQs for each section, and it includes a very detailed PowerPoint about what should go in each section. So again, please do download those and use those in your own materials. And finally, confirmation and clearing. We have a whole load of resources for advisors, which again, please do have a look at and use if that helps you in your own outreach work. I just wanted to really quickly, because this literally went live last week, just make everybody aware that for advisors, they've now got 2 new things in the portal. They've had Student Hub activity for a while, but we've just added in some information. So they can now see in the Student Hub activity the subjects that students have initially said they're interested in when they're signing up for the UCAS Hub. So that is a development that I thought would be useful that you're aware of. I know many of you will not necessarily have access to the advisor portal, but again, when we're talking about that kind of use of the hub with earlier years, just so you know, advisors can see all the years of the cohorts that's signed up for the hub, so they can see those students from earlier years, and they'll be able to see the subjects they're interested in, which will help them when they're thinking about signposting students to subject specific outreach at your institution. So that awareness for you might help you kind of, drop that into your outreach work, and then link it up with the subject specific work you've got going on. And then this is the Outreach Connection Service. So this is how advisors will be able to see the opportunities shared by you. In a tool, they can see it like this, or in a list, and then they'll be able to see the different years that would be eligible for that outreach program, whether it's online, whether it's in person, who the university is. And they've also got the opportunity to filter if they're looking for specific programs for the students that they work with. So I would just kind of really encourage you to make sure you know if your institution is sharing their outreach work through the Outreach Connection Service. That is a lot of updates. It is always a lot going on in UCAS. So you will get a copy of those slides, but we have got a bit of time for questions now as well. And I have one request actually for everybody on the call in supporting us, in supporting our advisors, because that's what we want to do. We all want to support our advisors who are in schools and colleges and working with these students. And I've personally spoken to nearly 1,000 advisors in the last 8 weeks across various formats. Yes, there's lots of changes and lots of people are thinking about new things, but they are still calling out for reference examples. And we are really unable to supply those without universities and colleges giving us examples of the new format that they have found useful. We can only give our advisors confidence to write less when they can see examples of people that have done it and who've been made offers. And we've been asking for examples from universities and colleges for a number of months now. And I'll be honest, we're not getting many through, and we're unable to support our advisors in that. So you're all working with your admissions teams. Please, could you ask them to share, or if you could access any and share them with me, that would be really great, because we want to support our advisors in having that confidence to go, actually, I'm going to write less. I know my students are going to be made offers. That will save them time to engage with all of the other services that you have as well, and not take their time up writing references that potentially aren't fully being read. So it's a bit of a plea from me to all of you wonderful Helloa colleagues. I'm just going to pop my direct email in the chat. I've actually just forgotten what my email is, which is embarrassing, but I'm going to pop it in. Paula's asked a question: how can we access and use the Outreach Hub service, and is there a cost attached? Paula, no, it's absolutely free for universities and colleges to share their outreach opportunities. What I will do is if you email I need to double check the email address. I think it's fairaccess@ucas.ac.uk. And then I can put you in touch with our Fair Access colleagues who'll be able to talk you through the onboarding process for you to be able to share those opportunities. So Paula, actually, what would be really useful is if you're interested in your university sharing their outreach, is if you just email me directly on s.sykes, I'll connect you with, it's Ellie Rowley at UCAS, who will be leading on that, and I can then share you directly. I've forgotten the central inbox address, unfortunately. Keir's asked, cost of exhibiting at UCAS Teacher and Advisor Conference was completely take that on board. I don't directly deal with that element, but I will certainly be sharing that feedback in working group meetings that we're having about the Teachers and Advisors Conference. So thank you for that. It's really useful feedback, and I will make sure I share that with our events colleagues. But also I imagine would be worth an email to events@ucas.ac.uk specifically, so that they can pick that up. And also do use your Helloa committee members, because they do liaise directly with our events team at UCAS in order to kind of raise the issues that you've got in terms of attending all of the UCAS events. So thanks for that. But I would sort of, we're working really hard, Jen, aren't we, to make sure that Helloa committee are directly working with those relevant colleagues at UCAS. And so all of this feedback's really useful. Don't know if there's any other specific questions. Oh, here we go. Is there any guidance for providers in reading the answer to various numbers mean number of parents who. Oh, it's really great. It's a really great point, Rachel. We don't specifically have guidance that we issue to you when using that information, because obviously universities and colleges are so autonomous in how they use all of the various aspects. If that's something that you think would be useful, then I will certainly raise that with our Fair Access colleagues, and also Carolyn Mindos in our admissions reform team, who's working on some good practice guidance for universities and colleges. So not specifically at the moment. We do have a number of pages specifically designed for universities and colleges and understanding the kind of different groups that we've got. And what I'll do is make sure, Rachel, I add those links into this deck. So I'll just make a note of that as well, to make sure that for all of we have individual needs toolkits that have been written for both advisors supporting students in those WP question brackets, but also the kind of correlating information for providers. So I'll add that to the deck to make sure that you can see that clearly. And then if you feel any more is needed, please do email me and I can pick that up with internal colleagues. Oh, great, loads of questions coming in. With the UCAS, can we integrate our current student ambassadors who are on the platform there? Again, Reese, I believe you can. Again, I don't deal directly with the UniBuddy system in terms of who is and isn't on it. If you would like to email me directly, I can find out who in the business I need to connect you with to discuss surfacing that on UCAS. But we know many of you are already using it, and so we want it to be designed easily for that. So I can put you in touch with Stuart internally to discuss that with you. We were unable to provide you with your specific. I'm not aware specifically of those issues, Louise. Any problems that we have in sharing data will immediately get picked up, discussed internally by our provider support team. So I would hope that no, there won't be those issues. If you have a specific question on that, then I would, if you know who your customer success director is at UCAS, would be to email them. Alternatively, email the CST team. So they'll be able to pick it up and surface it with our customer. So I'm the customer success manager for advisors. There is the equivalent of me who works for providers. So again, I'm really happy to connect you with those people if you'd like to email me on that as well. Oh, thank you, Jen. Somebody's got the internal, there's so many internal emails. I couldn't remember if it's access or outreach, but you've got my email, everybody, if you'd like to, and I can connect you with those people internally. I don't know if there's any more specific questions about any of the content I've dealt with, but just please do keep surfacing your questions to me, this audience. You're hugely important in terms of the work that you do with advisors. And I hope that we can continue to kind of surface the work that we do with advisors, which I think can so easily be used and edited and changed by you. And hopefully some of what I've talked about today will save you time. And I hope that we're certainly looking to put more of these on, Jen, aren't we? So would really welcome topics that you'd like me to cover. Like I said, really happy to do some specifics on the reports that I mentioned. I will just put that title of the report in here, as I said I would, and I'll put a link as well. But that's it from me.
Just with relation to that UniBuddy question, if you have to pay to have the UCAS sort of UniBuddy subscription, but once you have that, then it's all, you don't have to do anything, because I know we have that, and automatically your UniBuddies are kind of then visible via the UCAS platform. So it was very, very straightforward. Just if anybody is thinking about buying into that, it was very straightforward. But yeah, just to kind of bring this to a close, and I think we had some great questions. Not as many as I maybe anticipated, but I think it was because, Sam, your slides and your presentation was awesome as usual and so in depth that it just didn't leave us with many questions. So thank you very much. And yeah, like you said, we do hope to put on some more of these. So suggestions are welcome via myself to partnerships at helloa uk. The recording will be shared. It is going to take a few weeks. Just we need to do some edits and give our comms team a bit of time to get that prepared, just allowing to the fact that we are all volunteers, so we can't do it immediately, but we will get it to you as soon as we can. And thank you to everybody, and thank you, Sam. Have
Well,
a
thanks
good
for
rest of
having
the day.
me. And you, nice to see everybody. Hopefully join you again soon.
Bye, everyone.